I just want to talk to you this morning with this title in mind: Speak Your Truth. Why? Why do we have such a hard time believing women? Did you know that healthcare providers are less likely to believe black women when they tell their doctors about their symptoms or about their pain? Their medical concerns are often dismissed, ignored, and even chastised. Navigating the terrain of the medical world is hard enough, and even harder when the color of your skin can mean the difference between life and death. One such example of this is Serena Williams' story of childbirth. Although Serena Williams is arguably the greatest tennis player of all time, was talented, rich, and famous, she's still a black woman. And her story is therefore no exception. In an article I read, Williams recalls dealing with serious complications shortly after the birth of her daughter. She explains that the problem started the day after her daughter's birth by cesarean section, when Williams began to feel short of breath. And due to her history of pulmonary embolisms, the tennis star quickly alerted a nurse about her symptoms. She told the nearest nurse between gasps of air that she needed a CT scan and a heparin drip right away. The nurse thought that her pain medicine might be making her confused. But Serena insisted, and soon enough a doctor was performing an ultrasound of her legs. Williams said she once again told them, "I don't need an ultrasound. I need a CT scan and a heparin drip." And they continued with the ultrasound. The ultrasound revealed nothing. So then they finally sent her for the CT scan. And sure enough, several small blood clots had settled in her lungs. Minutes later, she was on the heparin drip she told them she needed in the first place. However, likely because they did not catch it in time, Williams continued to have problems. She coughed frequently due to the embolisms, and the coughs were forceful enough to cause her C-section wound to rupture, requiring her to have emergency surgery. While in surgery, doctors found that a hematoma had filled her abdomen. In other words, she had an issue of blood. A filter was placed into one of her major veins to keep her blood clots from traveling to her lungs. When she finally returned home to heal from childbirth and surgery with a newborn baby in tow, Williams needed 6 weeks of bed rest to recover. But praise God, she didn't die, and she made it home with her life. Serena Williams' story shows us how hard it can be for black women at all levels of society, including elite athletes known the world over, to get the care they need. Why do we have such a hard time believing women? More particularly, black women. I wonder if this was the case for the black woman in our text today. She needs no introduction. Chances are there's not a person here who has not heard the story of the woman with the issue of blood. This woman, whose names we do not know, is only known by her condition. And although we do not know her name or much about her backstory, the text does tell us a few things about her. We know she has been suffering with this issue that can only be assumed to be uterine bleeding for 12 long years. The text says she had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. And yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. And for however many doctors she saw, perhaps they too dismissed her symptoms, dismissed her pain, or misdiagnosed her. Or maybe they told her they could help her, but their recommended treatment did not work. Or maybe they just didn't listen to her altogether. Either way, they were all too eager to take her money, to the point that she had now depleted all of her funds. but was still suffering. And I'm sure by this point she was tired, stressed, mentally anguished, emotionally drained, desperate, depressed, and near death. Because 12 years is a long time to bleed out. If you know the whole story of Mark 5, you know that Mark interposes the story of the woman with the issue of blood with the story of Jairus, the synagogue ruler, and his daughter. Jairus' daughter is very sick and dies before Jesus brings her back to life. And the text is careful to mention that the daughter was 12 years old at the time. That means that this woman with the issue of blood had been suffering with her illness for as long as Jairus' daughter had been alive. And so in that regard, she had literally suffered for a lifetime. And a lifetime is too long for anyone to suffer. And so finally, this woman, she had enough. She decides to take matters into her own hands. She decides to become her own advocate. She decides to not give up, but to fight for her own life. And somehow she hears that Jesus is nearby. And she has faith that Jesus can heal her. And so she fashions in her mind that if I can just touch his clothes, I will be healed. And so she breaks every socio-historical, cultural, and purity law and uses every piece of black girl magic that she has, and she makes her way to Jesus. And the text says, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. And immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she had been freed from her suffering. Yes, she had remarkable faith in Jesus, but she bet on herself that day. Her becoming her own advocate led to her being freed from her suffering. And that tells me we can't take a passive role in our own lives. And we can't give up on ourselves based on someone else's diagnosis of us. We have to be our own advocates. We have to take control of our own lives. We have to take our life into our own hands and then take that life to Jesus. And then have faith and believe that he can make everything all right. Her faith, her belief, her courage, her tenacity, mixed with the power of Jesus, freed her from her suffering. Yes, but she didn't only have faith and belief in Jesus. She also had faith and belief in herself. We often miss that part of the story and give all the credit to Jesus, but she had to have faith in herself in order to even make her way to Jesus in the first place. And it is her faith in herself that ultimately leads to her being freed from her suffering. If you want to be freed from your suffering, be your own advocate. All right. Next, the text says, at once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him, and he turned in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? The disciples say, you see all these people crowding around you, really Jesus, and you're going to ask who touched you? But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering. Now let me say this. I love Jesus. And I am by no means trying to take anything away from Jesus. But when you really look at this text and his interaction with this woman, besides the sheer station and agency of him being Jesus, there's really not anything that he actually does in this text in the form of action. He does not lay hands on this woman and heal her. There is no spitting on the ground and making mud and placing it on her and demanding that she be healed. There is no calling out of a demon and saying, go and sin no more. There's none of that in this text. She actually does all of the work here. She put her faith in action. She made her And that is simply this: he listens to her. The text says Jesus, knowing that someone had touched him, seeks out who it is. And by doing so, he provides the time, the space, and opportunity for her to come forward. And she does. She does it with fear and trembling, but she does it. And the text says she told him the whole truth. Jesus, seeing that it is a woman who has touched him, seeing that it is a woman who has come forward, he does not ignore her. He does not dismiss her. He does not chastise her. He does not tell her to be silent. But instead, Jesus stops and listens to her speak her whole truth. He listens to this woman who had not been listened to and lets her get it all out. What a relief that must have been for her to finally be seen and heard. He listens to her. He believes her. He honors her. And he is compelled by her tenacity, her faith, her belief, her story, her truth. And he honors her by saying to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering. Her bleeding had stopped at the touch of his clothes, physically healing her. But her having the chance to speak her truth and truly be heard, I believe, emotionally and spiritually healed her. And now finally, she had been made whole. There is so much importance in speaking your truth. This is not just for women, but this is especially true for women, and in particular, black women, who are so often dismissed and disregarded in a patriarchal society that seeks to keep us silent. We are taught as women in this society to not speak out, to not speak up, to not value our voice. We are taught to keep everything inside. We are taught to keep secrets that we hold on to our deathbed. We are taught not to trust ourselves, because if we do speak up, if we do speak out, we're often not listened to or not believed. Or we fear what others will think of us if we speak our truth. But those are the very things that lead to suffering. Those are the very issues that have us bleeding out and robbing us of our very life. But this woman in this story once again shows us her courage by daring to tell her story, daring to push past her fear and speak her whole truth. And she did it in front of a crowd of people, no less. Jesus listened to her and believed her and honored her, because that is the type of Savior we serve. And it led to her being healed. And who knows who was in that crowd watching her, that she may have inspired by speaking her truth. We have to speak our truth and speak the whole truth. I believe it's the key to us being healed and being made whole. Your truth can heal you and it can heal others. Your story can heal you and it can heal others. Because you speaking your truth gives others the courage and permission to do the same. Because in the state of the world we live in now, I don't have to remind you who our president is. In the state of the world we live in now, we can no longer afford to be silent. We need more voices. We need more voices like Stacey Abrams, who said, you will count every last one of these votes, because I will not be silent while you try to use voter suppression and voter tampering to promote your white supremacist agenda. We need more voices like Maxine Waters, who will not shut up, who will not yield 1 second, but will instead reclaim her time. Because she understands the importance of speaking truth to power, to bring attention to the evil agendas that flow out of Washington. And so importantly, we need more voices and allies in the church. We need voices who will speak against patriarchy and misogyny and sexism that's still so very prevalent in the church. We need more voices like yours. Your life needs your voice. with us.
Yes, yes.
Be like the woman who had the issue of blood. Be the star of your own story.
Yes.
Be the hero of your own story. Be the shero of your